Whenever. Okay. I thought for Wednesday practice 10. There are things that we need to clean up. There are things that we did, at a high level. Coach Wilcox did it at the end. It was just, there were highs and lows in the practice, which we got to, again, just be more consistent all the way through it. There's some certain things, just even with just the sharpness of motions, the sharpness of breaking a huddle. Even though we don't huddle a lot, when we do, we want to make sure we're doing it right. So there's some things like that to clean up. But then on the flip side, there are also some positive things that happen. So it'll be good to see the film and just truly grade it and see how we performed in this, because you can start to get a feel for practice 10, practice 11 compared to 1 or 2. You should be getting better, but sometimes guys start dragging a little bit. So we got to, again, take advantage of everyone. We only get 15 this spring, and they're all extremely valuable.
It looked like the execution in general was just sharper today. How much do you see a growth from even last week?
Yeah, there's definitely a growth, and I think sometimes it might, there were times where it was, but there are also times we have to clean up, in terms of that. But yeah, there was definitely a growth from last week. There's no doubt about it. But we're still, greedy in that we want more in terms of a certain sharpness. When we are checking something, what would we have bled that play clock down? Certain things like that we got to just be, game ready for that, and just the other aspects that come with it. Besides just taking, sometimes a little longer to check a play, or have to reset a motion if we're not getting it right. Some of those things need to be cleaned up.
Are those some of the things you're may deal with a little more tomorrow, as far as just getting everything in place?
Yeah, and we had a couple teach periods where that was the focus. Some of the flops of trades and shifts and flops. So they definitely got better as we went. We got into it in a little bit of our individual teach periods. But it definitely has to be something that we continue to do throughout the rest of camp. So we really feel, anything you're doing 2/3 of the way through that isn't to the level and the standard that you believe it should be, you need to really overemphasize it in those last 5 practices.
Looked run game in particular looked better than it has, I think, all of spring. What would you kind of attribute that to? Yeah,
the guys did a good job up front, but you heard Coach Wilcox say it. There were times where he did, and then there's times where, it wasn't. So we just need to be more consistent. But there were definitely some good things that we did within it, and we showed them something new today. So sometimes, when it's the first time they see it, you catch them a little bit. So I don't want to – it's like you're never as good as it seems, and it's never as – in certain times you might come in here and say – you don't think it looks as good, maybe it's a little closer than we think, So, yeah, it's one of those things where we still got to be humble to the fact, we spit a few and hit a few, but, second time around when they've seen it, we have to be that much sharper with it.
What has Chris Brown done in that regard to kind of build up?
Yeah, he's a big back that we know has strength. We know catches the ball well out of the backfield, but the things that I like that I've seen improvement in is just his ability to get out of the backfield. He's opening his hips better in terms of some of the swing routes and some of the things that we do, and his short area quickness, getting in some jump cuts and getting in things like that. It's not always easy for a back that's over 220 pounds, and he's doing it. He's making incredible strides there. So that says a lot about, what he's done with Coach Becton and that crew, and just his overall movements and, how his body's moving as a 220-pound, plus back, especially young in his career still.
I asked Coach Wilcox on Saturday that the point of emphasis of the offense kind of looked like it was a plant and get vertical, and he talked about just he wanted to see it translate more from practice onto into the scrimmage and play the game. What have you seen from their how much they've grown as you've put that as a point of emphasis over the first few weeks?
Yeah, you definitely see it, and you definitely see guys getting their foot in the ground and getting vertical and just making sure we're not bouncing things, and just because we understand that every level you go up, there's less and less of that lateral, and there's got to be more and more north and south, and not just running backs, with wideouts as well, tight ends, guys catching the ball in the backfield or running, quick screens, whatever it might be. So definitely seen it, but sometimes it'll be like any position. Then all of a sudden you get the refs out here and it becomes a game, and you're not able to sometimes that's where we have to make that great transition of taking the things that we work in an individual period or even a practice period, and when we get into scrimmage mode and eventually game mode, that we can translate that stuff, and that just stuff will happen more naturally rather than sometimes reverting back to old habits or bad habits. That's the biggest key.
We've also seen Chase on a couple of throws today, changing his arm angles to get into those windows, and what have you seen from his growth of just being able to make throws, in different types of situations?
Yeah, just, and any time you get a quarterback who's coming off a season where he didn't start every game, but he played a lot of football as a young quarterback, there should be growth going into year 2, but to his credit, he's worked at it. He's worked at it, you know, in terms of ever, you know, well before I even talked to him. He's worked at it in terms of continuing to change his body. You know, his body is different when we started camp than when it was when we finished the season, just his strength and just his mindset and his confidence. So, yeah, he's definitely taking strides that way, but that's the expectation, you know, and he'd be the first to tell you that. You know, he still knows, and we still know we all have a long way to go in that regard, but he is showing the growth that makes you excited, you know, about what he's doing.
Sorry.
From a layman, he looked pretty sharp today, Chase. Is it safe to say, yeah, I know you're not
Yep.
naming a starter, but is it safe to say he's sort of the leader at this point?
Well, he's definitely, I mean, he's the guy coming back, and that's not taking anything away. Devon's getting most of the 2 reps, you know, and he's getting a lot of reps with the 1s too. And in fairness to a guy like Modster, he's only been here 10 practices, where Chase has been here a couple years. So yes, you could say that, like right now, in terms of when we go out to practice, who goes with the 1s right away. And the thing I like about Garbs is he's not worrying about that. He's not asking about that. He's not concerned with that. He's just working, you know, each period, each drill. Am I in? I'm ready to go, you know, earn everything, you know, and Modster's doing the same. And then Jack and Robbie, Jack got a few more today, didn't get as many, but I got to keep getting some data on all 4 of those guys, you know, just from that standpoint. But, you know, Devon's doing the same thing. He's not asking questions or not, you know, anything. He's just trying to work each day, and you know, those guys all of them are competing to be the starter, which I respect, but they're not letting that consume like their I guess their attitude or the mentality or however that means, except in a positive way.
Have you had quarterbacks that sort of pestered you? Am I the guy? Am I the guy?
Well, sometimes, you know, I've had it in the past sometimes, and those guys sometimes, you know, just aren't as secure with just going out there and controlling what they control. And it happens sometimes. You know, I want to communicate with them too. You know, we're going to have good communication through the rest of spring and definitely at the end of spring with evals, but also you don't need to over communicate. It's more or less you got to be able to come out and, you know, if I end up with 12 reps today, I don't want to ask why I didn't get 18. I want to focus on those 12. You know, and that's just the mindset with those guys, and they're doing a great job of that. You know, that room's, you know, a lot of fun to be around because of their mentality and their attitude.
I've been told that the 5th player who's going to be in the competition over the summer, Spencer Brash, is coming over here for the spring game.
Yep.
What's his skill set like that you really like that made you want to bring him to Cal?
You know, he has a quick release. He has a really live arm. You know, so he can flick it from different angles. He can throw on the run well. He can bring some things within the read game, just athletically. And you know, and what I liked is that you know, he at different times, you know, was in tough situations. You know, this past year where either they were down early. I mean, one game I was at, they were down 21-0, I think it was. You know, and he always had a way of not letting that affect him, except in a positive way, you know, still bringing those guys up when we're down and finding a way to rally. So he's got those skill set things, you know, I loved about him because he can do a lot of things that we want to do within this offense. But then on top of that, some of the adverse situations I saw him in, it was great to see him, you know, lead the team out of them, you know. So those are a couple things that are huge at the quarterback position. So definitely excited about, you know, Spencer adding to the mix.
Is it even conceivable that a guy coming in like that could be a starter at some point next season?
Yeah, you never know. I mean, like I said, I'm not, you know, it's I just would never say never in any year I coach this deal, you know, because you just never know, you know. I mean, I think Safel became a starter at O-line, and O-line sometimes is even, I think he did that first. I know he's playing a lot, you know, against USC in that game 4 as a threat. And O-line maybe is less conceivable than quarterback sometimes, you know. So you just never know, you know, what could happen. And and he's got the mindset. I want all 5 of those guys coming in to believe, you know, I'm coming in to compete for the starting role and control what you control. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Coach.